Wow. Just wow. What a weekend. Welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Monday, April 21st. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White. Today on the show, not only do we have crazy games this weekend, prospect promotions. We'll talk about how much fab they went for in some of our leagues so far. What is going on with Devin Williams and Emmanuel Clase? We have a bunch of waiver wire moves, all that fun stuff. On top of all that, Scott, on top of all the baseball, there was WrestleMania this weekend for those who partake. There were NBA playoffs. We had Easter Sunday. Like, there was so much going on. Oh, man. Scott, did you get any peeps on Easter? How you doing?
I'm good. No, I didn't get any peeps on Easter, though I think there's always peeps lying around the house. Peeps from whatever the last peep event was, because they're not exclusive to Easter anymore. You realize this, right? They come in all various festive shapes and flavors. And
I feel like I only consume them around Easter. But
yeah. I mean, that's wise, but no, I mean, the way, like, particularly when you have kids, like you just, there's more candy than you can ever eat, it's just, and you never know when to throw it out, really. I guess when the next time that same holiday rolls around, okay, if we didn't get to this in the last year, I guess that's it for it. But anyway, no peeps today.
Oh man, I love my parents. They still give me an Easter basket, even though I don't know, in my mid 30s, I guess you could say. I got these Peeps Rice Krispie treats, which sound amazing. I haven't opened yet.
My wife requested those at the store a couple weeks ago, so those are among the Peeps we have lying around.
Oh, are they good?
They taste like what they claim to taste like.
All right,
they're not my favorite Peep flavor. I didn't see my favorite Peep flavor this year. That's the hot tamales.
Oh,
Peeps.
Man. That is
love that cinnamon candy flavor.
That is a choice. All right, let's talk about baseball because, like I said, there's a lot to talk about.
Oh my goodness gracious!
All right, Scott, we will start with you, player of the weekend.
All right, my player of the weekend is none other than Logan Henderson of the Milwaukee Brewers. If you haven't heard of him before, that's because he was just called up. This was his major league debut on Sunday, and it's not like he was on anybody's top 100 prospect list. He wasn't that highly regarded, but he was dominant in the minors last year. It's worth pointing out. Between 4 levels, ending at AAA where he had 6 starts, between 4 levels, 3.54 ERA. Okay, that's not amazing, but a .91 WHIP and 11.5 K per 9. And to go along with that 11.5 K per 9, 1.7 walks per 9. So this is one of the best strikeout to walk ratios in all the minors last year for Logan Henderson. Clearly a guy who knows how to throw strikes. It's basically just a 2-pitch arsenal that he unveiled here in his debut. The fastball threw at 53% of the time, changeup 40% of the time. But Logan Henderson dominated the Athletics just like he was doing in the minors. 6 innings, 3 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, 9 strikeouts, 13 whiffs on 83 pitches. Again, just with those 2, it's a fastball that has kind of the optimal shape. Doesn't have huge velocity, but it gets it's got a low release height, so he gets the swings and misses. And then the changeup is genuinely a plus pitch in his own right. He was beginning to work in a cutter at AAA this year, threw it about 12% of the time. I guess didn't feel like he needed it here in his debut or didn't feel totally comfortable with it. And, the results speak for themselves. Will Logan Henderson always be this good? Probably not. The reason the ERA ran kind of high last year is because he has some vulnerability to the long ball. And as we saw from Joe Ryan, for instance, on Sunday, there will be times when that vulnerability to the long ball does its dirty work. But Logan Henderson avoided that in this start and showed upside. And you see this a lot of times with pitchers, especially. Sometimes with hitters too, but especially pitchers, I feel like, because they're the qualities that make them good are a little harder to pin down. You'll see a guy dominate in the minors in an unconventional way, and so he doesn't get a lot of recognition from the prospect hounds. And then he just comes up and it keeps working. I mean, it happened with Joe Ryan, for instance, to continue with that same comparison. So maybe it'll work for Logan Henderson. And just given the state of starting pitching on the waiver wire right now, we were talking about this all last week. It's kind of been drained already, with Tyler Mahle being the most interesting option who might be out there in some leagues. Well, now Logan Henderson's out there in basically all the leagues. So I wasn't throwing a ton of fab dollars at him for my leagues that run here on Sunday night, but I was throwing a couple. He was among the starting pitchers I was more interested in. The other question with Logan Henderson is, does he stick around? The Brewers have been hit especially hard by injuries, so the knee-jerk reaction is like, well, if he's performing, of course. But they do have Tobias Myers coming back this week. They haven't sent Logan Henderson down yet, notably. Maybe they send Quinn Priester down. I don't know. Quinn Priester's still on the schedule to start Monday. You got Chad Patrick, who's looked pretty good, but not as good as Henderson did in this start. I don't know. I think with a 7-day week coming up, they're just going to plan to go 6-man this time through and sort it out after that. So I would imagine Logan Henderson at least gets one more start to prove he belongs. But if he does, I think there's a chance he does stick around. And even if it doesn't happen, then, it's going to be the next injury, which is always just around the corner.
Yeah, and Logan Henderson is widely available, only 13% rostered on CBS. And if he does stick around this week, it looks like he will face the Cardinals later on. I'm interested to see if this just mainly fastball changeup combination can dominate, and I don't want to just generalize all like whatever changeup pitchers here, but it feels like when pitching prospects dominate with a changeup, mostly in the minors, doesn't always work out as well in the majors. And the first one that comes to mind is like Gavin Stone, right? And like Gavin Stone had an okay season last year, but the underlying numbers never really backed it up. And we were always kind of expecting him to live up to what he did in the minors. And, it hasn't been that. So that's the first one that comes to mind. And he throws even harder than someone like Logan Henderson. So I guess I might be a little bit skeptical whether or not this can actually work, Scott, or is there a legitimate third pitch that Logan Henderson can go to if, his changeup is not otherworldly in a given start?
Well, I would say a lot depends on the effectiveness of the fastball. Like if the fastball is the swing and miss offering in its own right, which we saw from Joe Ryan in his early years, then I think it'll be fine. There is no more effective weapon than a fastball that can miss bats. And like I said with Henderson, that kind of low delivery, at least in the minors, it's made that pitch a bat misser itself. And it was a bat misser in his major league debut too. So, I mean, look, you're right to be skeptical. Not a lot of pedigree here and vulnerability to the long ball, but not a lot interesting on the waiver wire at starting pitcher, as I said. So don't go crazy for Logan Henderson, but throw a couple bucks at him and see where it goes.
What size leagues are you looking to add him in right now? Is it, just deeper leagues for now, or, 12-team points, 12-team roto? Yeah.
I think I put him in a bid for him in every single league.
Okay.
Because at every single league, there's a need for pitching. I never have enough pitching. So if a new one emerges, I'm going to take a shot on him for it. Again, at least a couple bucks.
Let's talk about another waiver wire pitcher that had another great start this weekend. That was Andrew Abbott, my player of the weekend at the Orioles. 6 innings, 1 run, 11 strikeouts to 1 walk. He had 19 whiffs on 93 pitches, 9 of those on the changeup, 5 on the fastball, 4 on the curve here. And each of, those 3 pitches were just awesome in this start. What's interesting is that the fastball is actually down 1.6 miles per hour so far this season for Andrew Abbott, but it's been so effective. Super small sample, only 2 starts. In fact, everything is a small sample right now, but even smaller for Andrew Abbott. But it's a 35% whiff rate and a 282 expected WOBA on that fastball. So it has been very effective thus far. 39% rostered. I couldn't tell if he's in line to face the Marlins or the Rockies this week. And it makes a huge difference, Scott, because in Miami versus in Colorado, obviously is a much different situation. Were you able to kind of hammer down. Well, yeah, the Rockies are bad.
There were a couple really good starts from opposing pitchers in Colorado this weekend.
It's still Coors Field. Like I'd much rather use Abbott at Miami if that's the case. Were you able to kind of hammer down what the matchup is going to be this week for Andrew Abbott, and who do you like more between him and Logan Henderson?
I'm trying to remember. I think I put Henderson over Andrew Abbott just because he's a little more of a mystery box. Abbott, he hasn't, prior to this start, hasn't been much of a strikeout pitcher at the major league level. The control hasn't been great either. A ton of fly balls for a pitcher who plays in the most homer-friendly park. Just always seemed like a house of cards waiting to topple. So don't get me wrong, I was putting in bids on Abbott in every league where he was available because he is another starting pitcher who's showing signs of life. 11 strikeouts against a really good Orioles offense. And a couple extra inches of induced vertical break on the fastball. I think that's worth noting. 18 inches this year versus 16 last year. And it was, he got 5 whiffs just on that pitch in this start. I think it's probably helping the changeup play up too. I got 9 whiffs against the Orioles. So I could see how maybe that, if you're looking for a sign that maybe Abbott is different, that seems like the biggest one to me. There are also some changes there with the pitch selection, though I wouldn't say that's as significant as just maybe the fastball becoming more effective for Andrew Abbott. It looks like Colorado is the next start. And I don't think I'd trust him enough to start him if I was picking him up anyway. Again, the track record is he's managed to keep the ERA respectable, but kind of in spite of himself. I did not see much in Abbott's profile to get excited about at all prior to this start. So I'm not going to trust him in my lineup after one good start. But yeah, I'll put in a bid for him if he's available and see if this fastball continues to shine like it did at the Orioles over the weekend.
Yeah, masterful start there for Andrew Abbott. I think I agree with you. I'd rather take the shot on Logan Henderson. There's much more variance in the outcome here to the point where we're not exactly sure that Logan Henderson's sticking around, but what he's done as a prospect so far and the strikeout upside seems more tantalizing. I say that even after Abbott had an 11 strikeout start, but I do think, there's more of a floor here with Abbott. He's going to be in the Reds rotation and he's been serviceable to this point in his career. He, hasn't flashed that much upside. So I think I would take a Logan Henderson as well. But yeah, if you're in need in pitching, those are definitely 2 names that you should be looking at right now. Let's take a quick break. When we return, we'll do a little, oh my goodness gracious, shout outs. Other just crazy things that happened this weekend. We'll do that right after this. Welcome back in Fantasy Baseball today. Some, oh my goodness gracious, shout outs from the weekend. Just some notable things here. RIP to those who use Easton Lucas this week. I am sorry because he got crushed in both of his starts. The final line for the 2-start week, 6 2/3 innings, 13 hits, 14 earned runs, 5 homers allowed. That is an 18.9 ERA, 285 whip. Still 42% rostered because most people picked him up for the 2-start week. But Scott, I'm pretty confident we can drop Easton Lucas probably for either of the pitchers we just talked about.
Yeah, I would say so. It's an opportunity to free up a roster spot, which we're always looking to do. Nobody's going to pick him up after these 2 starts, and he may just be bad, and maybe the Blue Jays even send him down. Who knows? But it is a shame that Easton couldn't pull it off on Easter.
Yes, indeed. Some crazy games this weekend. The Cubs back on Friday defeated the D-backs 13-11. That game featured 2 grand slams, 21 combined runs in the 7th and 8th innings alone. It was bananas. And one of the people that contributed, Carson Kelly. I don't know if this is a thing or not, but people seem to be buying in because he's now 58% rostered on CBS, which seems a little crazy to me.
Yeah.
2 for 5 with 2 home runs, 5 RBI in this game. He's batting .371. He's got 6 homers, 18 RBI, a 1502 OPS. The problem here, Scott, is you don't get those stats that he already accrued, right? You don't get those on your fantasy team if you pick him up now. They still have Miguel Amaya, who I think is probably going to just split time evenly, like for the foreseeable future for the Cubs at least. So 58% roster. I was a little shocked to see.
Yeah, it shouldn't be 58%. He came up the other day, Carson Kelly, when Edgar Caro got called up by the White Sox, and I was saying, there's some prospect pedigree there, but the data doesn't look great, and he's on the White Sox, so I don't think I'd drop like a Carson Kelly for him in a 2-catcher league, and I think Chris said he would because he preferred the mystery box to Carson Kelly, and that's a perfectly fine take, but that's the kind of league where I think Kelly should be rostered in is toward the back end of 2-start catcher options. Absolutely needs to be rostered there. I think at the very least he's earned a 50-50 split with Amaya going forward. And look, Carson Kelly was a player of some pedigree once upon a time. I believe he came over from the Cardinals in the Paul Goldschmidt deal.
Yep.
So we're talking a long time ago, but like he was not a small part of that deal. And his first year in Arizona, he hit 18 home runs. Since then, the playing time has been very sporadic, but it's not like he's a zero offensively. The biggest change I see in his offensive profile this year is the strikeout to walk rate. It looks upside down, frankly. He's got a 9% K rate and a 27% walk rate, which is too good to be true. And I imagine we're going to see a lot of correction there. The barrel rate is also ridiculously high, which to me, when you see it that out of sorts for a player, it just means he's hot. And of course he's hot. You don't need the barrel rate to tell you that. So I'm fine with Carson Kelly as like the 20th catcher, but I wouldn't clearly, if he's rostered in nearly 60% of leagues, he's being rostered in some 1-catcher leagues, and I wouldn't do that.
I agree. Want to mention 93.5 average exit velocity so far for Carson Kelly with that K to walk ratio is pretty crazy there. So I mostly agree, 2-catcher leagues, and shout out to whoever, and there has to be someone out there, whoever has rostered Carson Kelly for all of this production, just give yourself a pat on the back. I mean, there has to be an NL only league somewhere, a 15-team 2-catcher league, like a draft and hold format, where somebody has reaped the benefits of all of this Carson Kelly production. And if that was you, give yourself a pat on the back, because that is amazing. The other crazy game, the Reds defeated the Orioles 24-2 on Sunday. They did beat up on some position players late, but it all counts in the record book the same. It all counts for fantasy the same as well. Want to mention Austin Hayes once again. Kind of feels like he is just a must add, Scott. 3 outfielder leagues, 5 outfielder leagues. It doesn't really matter to me. First 6 games for Austin Hayes, 429 batting average, 3 homers, 7 runs, 8 RBI, OPS over 1,200, 35% rostered, and he's one of your sleeper hitters this week.
Yeah, I moved him way up on the sleeper hitters list to number 2 after this big weekend. Obviously ending with the 4-hit game, already has 3 home runs, has yet to go hitless since coming off the IL for the Reds. And I don't think we really know what he's capable of. Of course, he's been around for a while, but most of the time he's been around was either in Baltimore after the fences got pushed back in left field. Austin Hayes, a right-handed hitter, and that effectively destroyed him for fantasy. The year before that happened, he had 22 home runs. And then since then, he hasn't contributed much of anything. Now, he did get traded to Philadelphia at the trade deadline last year, and we thought, okay, maybe this is going to be enough to unlock Austin Hayes' potential. He was terrible with the Phillies. And I don't feel like this story has circulated enough. He was going through a kidney infection all that time, didn't even know it, like a pretty serious health issue. He just, he felt weak. He didn't feel good. Just felt awful the whole time, and only found out later that it was a kidney infection. So his time in Philadelphia clearly wasn't a good test of what he's capable of with normal outfield fences. And now he's got the shortest outfield fences of all in Cincinnati. So I'm a little skeptical Hayes will amount to much in a points league just because he walks so infrequently, but any other format, and even in a points league, if you need immediate outfield help, I think he's a fine pickup.
All right, and speaking of the Reds, want to mention Noelvi Marte, who went 5 for 7 in that game Sunday with 2 doubles, a homer, 7 RBI. He also started Friday as well. He went 0 for 5 in that game. He's only 13% rostered. We don't have to go back too far. Before the suspension last year, he was being drafted as like a top 200, maybe top 150 pick. There was a lot of breakout hype around Noelvi Marte. Will he play, Scott? That's the main question. What do you think?
That is the main question. Did this big performance earn Noelvi Marte more playing time? Still very young, has top prospect pedigree. The PED suspension kind of derailed him. Even in the minors last year, he wasn't very good. But 4 balls hit 94.9 miles per hour in this game. The 5 hits total, 7 RBI. I will say that the home run, which was a grand slam, it was responsible for 4 of the 7 RBI. It did come off Jorge Mateo.
Yeah.
So, and it was, barely squeaking inside the foul pole kind of home run for Noelvi Marte. So I don't know if it really proved anything, this big performance. It was just his second start in 6 games. Jeimer Candelario, the Reds owe him money, so maybe they want to see that through. I'd prefer them giving Noelvi Marte a shot, but I just don't know. I would save this pickup more for deeper leagues as a speculative ad.
All right, and you're not picking up Austin Wins, but I just want to mention what he did. 6 for 7 with a home run and 6 RBI in this game for Austin.
I know, 24 runs, and you're thinking, okay, like what kind of huge production did all my most rostered Reds have in this game? And you go, and it's the 34-year-old backup catcher who you never heard of had the biggest game, and then Noelvi Marte, who nobody has either. Yeah. I guess Ellie De La Cruz had a sock and a shoe, right? But it was a modest performance relative to them scoring 24 runs.
Yeah. Marte and Austin Wins, the number 8 and 9 hitters in that game, combined for 11 hits and 13 RBI. So pretty crazy stuff there for the Reds. And one more I wanted to mention, the Brewers had 9 steals on Sunday against Shea Langoliers, and the A's, Bryce Terang had 3, and he is off to a tremendous start this season, hitting over 300. He's got 3 homers, 23 runs, 8 steals so far. Sal Frelick had 2 steals, and then each of Christian Yelich, William Contreras, Rhys Hoskins, and Caleb Durbin had 1 steal as well. We spoke about Sal Frelick last week. He continues to impress. He's batting .342. He's got 7 steals so far, .906 OPS, 60% rostered. And Rhys Hoskins really turned his season around this week, 3 for 5 with a sock and a shoe on Sunday. And overall on the week, he had 9 hits, 3 homers, 5 runs, and 8 RBI, 54% rostered. Scott, do you think either of those numbers need to be higher? Sal Frelick at 60%, Rhys Hoskins at 54%.
Yeah, I think they both need to be higher. Frelick's plate discipline is so good that I think he's plenty startable even in a points league. And of course, the kind of stolen base production he's giving early on makes him plenty startable in a categories league. He's not going to give much in the way of power, but I think this is what we've been waiting for from Sal Frelick, who was a pretty good prospect back in the day. And Rhys Hoskins, all it took was a few multi-hit games, and suddenly his percentages look like they should look. They look exactly like Rhys Hoskins' batting average and OPS and all of that. So he is living up to what you wanted him to be. The problem with him is, and I know I've been getting asked about this, not even including Rhys Hoskins, but how do you make all the emergent first basemen work on a single fantasy roster? And I'm having that problem in a couple leagues myself. I know other people are, and that's before we even consider Hoskins, like I said.
It's crazy. It is just, it's crazy what has happened with the first base position, especially when you think about there are names up top that have struggled big time, right? Like Cody Bellinger has first base eligibility. He has struggled. Christian Walker is off to a really slow start. Vinny Pasquantino off to a slow start as well. And then just behind those guys, you have all these emergent Tyler Soderstrom, who's off to this amazing start. Ben Rice, Spencer Torkelson. But now Jonathan Aranda has entered this mix and playing against 2 lefties this weekend. So is he just an everyday player now? And then on top of that, we do still have some of these kind of retreads that, are picking things up. Michael Busch, Rhys Hoskins, who we just spoke about. So
yep,
there is a lot going on at the position.
And I mean, to call Bush a retread is kind of unfair because he was just a rookie last year.
It totally is. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's, I mean, one of the biggest stories, or I guess developments of the weekend was, and you mentioned it there, Jonathan Aranda playing against back-to-back lefties and batting third on Sunday against a lefty. And by the way, I think he was the only Ray. He didn't get a hit, but I think he was the only Ray to get on base multiple times. So you would think he earned the right to play even more against lefties. You would think. And I've been saying if Jonathan Aranda becomes an everyday player, or at least close to it, starts against most lefties, he's going to shoot way up my rankings. Is he there? Because I think skills wise, it's I know Tyler Soderstrom has all the home runs, but just if I'm evaluating these guys on how much I like them on a pure skill level, I don't know. Aranda might be at the top of the list. I know I'm not going to rank him ahead of Soderstrom, but he belongs really high. And there are people just begging me to drop Vinny Pasquantino and Tristan Casas. And I'm not ready to do either. But how proven are either is what I find me asking myself. We got half a great season from Tristan Casas. We've gotten a couple of injury-shortened but decent seasons from Vinny Pasquantino. I think neither has met his full potential yet, and that's kind of what we were drafting them for. But do they really deserve preference over some of these other guys who are also of pedigree and they're off to great starts? It's a small sample, obviously, a smaller sample than the kind of samples where we saw Casas and Pasquantino at their best. But in the kind of leagues where you could actually, that are shallow enough where you could actually even broach the subject of dropping Casas and Pasquantino, maybe you could live without him. If you're in a pinch and you want to see what Aranda, you want to see this through with Aranda, you want to see this through with Ben Rice or Michael Bush, I don't know. I'm uncomfortable saying it, but if I think it through, I don't know. How do you feel? It doesn't sound so crazy to me, given that those guys aren't, it's not like we're saying drop Cody Bellinger for him or drop Christian Walker for him, guys who have like multiple seasons of impactful fantasy production.
Yeah, I think I'm closer to dropping Casas than I am Vinny P. And I know it was not even a full season last year because he dealt with some injuries, but Vinny P was good last year and he was really serviceable. And, for all the reasons we've talked about for years, like there's a lot to like with Vinny Pasquantino still. So I can't see myself dropping him. I know Chris has kind of made this point a lot early on in the season. I feel like there still has to be a worse player on your roster somewhere. I know you don't really want these guys sitting on the waiver wire, but man, if you could find a way, just drop whatever backup hitter or whatever pitcher on your bench that you're just never going to use, whatever it might be, to get one of these other first basemen and play them over a Casas or Vinny P. I'd much rather do that. Yeah. If push came to shove, if you're in a really, really shallow league, like I'm closer to saying, yeah, you could drop Casas for the hot hand at first base. I don't think
it's these 12-team head-to-head points leagues we're in, which I mean that they're head-to-head points leagues makes them shallow by nature, but 12-teamers, it's not like it's really tiny league.
Yeah, I have this exact issue in our podcast league. I have Tristan Casas as my first baseman who has given me nothing, and I have bids here on Sunday trying to pick up Aranda, but it's not dropping Casas. It's
did you bid enough?
Probably
so do I.
Probably not. But I think I had like Jonathan India on my bench or Kyron Paris, and in a point saying, like, all right, I'll drop one of those guys and try and pick up Aranda.
But dropping Kyron Paris, I mean, I think a lot of people would shudder. I know he's cooled off, but still,
Scott, he had in a points league this week. He had -2.5 fantasy points.
I know he's cooled off, but I think where does he actually rank among second basemen to date? And I happen to have points league rankings pulled up here. He's still been the 6th best points league second baseman so far, ahead of, or actually tied with Nico Horner.
Yeah. All good questions. And I totally get why people are asking this about the first base position. I know you're working on an article tonight, Scott, right? Where you're going to try and break all of this down in particular, right?
I'm going to try.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'll have clear answers because
Good luck to you, sir.
it's not like there's one of them. We haven't even mentioned Spencer Torkelson in this. It's not like there's one of them where I can point to and say, yeah, that's fake. Clearly that's fake. Don't be fooled by this.
Yeah. All right, well, let's take our final break. Then we'll get into news and notes, all this prospect stuff from the weekend, and we'll try to speed through everything else. We'll do that right after this.
Baby, we are gonna start a fire.
From world-renowned clubs
Simply devastating.
to worldwide stars,
Wrexham have done it. This incredible ride continues.
the English Football League on CBS Sports Network, and stream every match live on Paramount Plus.
Welcome back in news and notes, and it is a fun time for prospects. And I realize prospects are very divisive, and they have been for the past couple of years. You know, some people get frustrated when, you guys focus on prospects so much. And Scott, I think you've done a good job of kind of laying out, like, these are lottery tickets. Let's see what happens. But a lot of them are very fun lottery tickets as well. And that's what you could say about Chandler Simpson, who is maybe the fastest player in all of baseball, and he is an outfield prospect for the Rays. He was promoted on Friday. He's 24 years old. Last season, hit .355 with 104 steals in the minors. Only one homer, and it was an inside-the-park home run. So you are getting no speed, probably close to no RBI, but you could be getting a very good batting average, amazing steals, and probably runs scored as well. As we always have with Rays prospect, Scott, like, will he stick around? Will he play every day? These are totally fair questions, but is Chandler Simpson a must-add in category leagues? How much did you see him going for in Fab? Because I know he was, a big name, and people were spending up on Sunday.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Jeff Passan was giving out fantasy advice on picking up Chandler Simpson, which he was saying pick him up everywhere. I thought that was an overstatement. Clearly, points leagues, you're not doing that, which isn't to say that Chandler Simpson in a best case scenario couldn't be valuable in points leagues. I think in a best case scenario, Chandler Simpson is Xavier Edwards. Like that's kind of the profile you're looking for here. And to again, to stress those numbers, .355 batting average, 104 stolen bases last year with zero power, but neither does, Xavier Edwards doesn't have any power either. The problem with saying, he could be Xavier Edwards is how many other Xavier Edwards can you remember? And even Xavier Edwards, we're not totally sure is sustainable. So far, so good. But it's just, before him to get back to be, if you're thinking back to like this guy who excels in both batting average and stolen bases with zero power, like a real standout in both. The last one I can remember before Xavier Edwards is like Michael Bourne. And then before that, you go back to like Juan Pierre. Like it's rare. It's not, and
D. Gordon.
Yeah, he had a couple years.
He did it, Scott, for a few years. He was.
How long ago was that?
A decade, 15 years, maybe.
Okay, so there you go. It was. Let's see, 2017. Yeah, 2017. You're right. 2014 through 2017. He had a great 4-year run of that. You're right. That's an oversight. I should mention him when I'm recalling them. But that was, almost 10 years ago. It was a while ago. It's rare. And it's become increasingly rare, I think, because we've gotten so much better at defensive positioning, and pitchers are just like, pitching has improved so much just in that span of time. A pitcher can knock the bat out of a guy's hands like that. And then when he does put it in play, we're better at having a fielder there to field it. And so it just hasn't worked out for other examples of that. The reason I have some hope for Chandler Simpson is because he knows exactly who he is. He hit the ball last year when he was batting .355. He put the ball in the air just 17% of the time. He hit the ball to the opposite field 38% of the time. He does not have any interest in hitting anything close to what would be considered a home run. So he's not giving away a lot of outs on contact. He's at least giving himself a chance by not putting it in the air. So maybe it'll work. He started both games so far, batted leadoff in one of them, batted ninth in the other. Just the fact that they hit him leadoff in the major league debut, the Rays of all teams, I thought that was encouraging. But it's a relative long shot. But obviously, if it does work, he could be totally transformative in that one category. So every categories league, especially the 5 outfielder roto leagues, yeah, you should probably pick up Simpson. For how much? I think that depends on how desperately you need steals, first of all, and how deep the league is. So most of my roto leagues, if I'm being honest, are 15-teamers. I am in one 12-teamer, but I'm in deeper 15-teamers for the most part. And Chandler Simpson was going for like 15 to 25% of people's season-long budget in those 15-teamers. It's a big chunk of change. In the 12-teamers, maybe more like 10 to 15. And if you don't need steals, throw an 8% kind of bid at him, and just in case everybody's sleeping. And maybe if nothing else, you'll get trade bait out of it. That's how I think you should approach Chandler Simpson. But it is not a sure thing. Not just because he plays for the Rays, but because this profile so rarely works.
And Simpson wasn't the only one that was promoted, or at least we learned will be promoted this week, because the Marlins are planning to promote their catcher prospect, Augustin Ramirez, who last season came over from the Yankees in the Jazz Chisholm trade. In the minors, he hit .267 with 25 homers, 22 steals. This season in the minors, .258, 3 homers, 5 steals. Just an interesting profile. Power, speed at the catcher position is, I don't want to make the lofty like JT Realmuto comparison, but if it all works out, it can look like JT Realmuto here. Is he a must-add in 2 catcher leagues, Scott? Augustin Ramirez.
Yeah, must-add. Somebody asked the question on Twitter, drop Hunter Goodman for Augustin Ramirez. And I think that's the line. So I think about 15th in my catcher rankings is where Augustin Ramirez is going to debut. I said no because Hunter Goodman has a ton of power and he's playing virtually every day for the Rockies. It hasn't gone amazingly so far, but it's gone good enough that I want to stick with it. And Augustin Ramirez, who knows? I mean, he could just, the way prospect call-ups have gone recently, a lot of times that first stint goes very, very poorly and doesn't last very long. So I wouldn't want to throw out a true asset like Goodman for him. But would I drop Carson Kelly for him? Yeah, if I had to do that, I would. I think you've gotten as much as you can get out of Kelly, the majority of what you're going to get out of him anyway. And Augustin Ramirez, a potential power speed threat with great on base skills too, by the way. That could be huge at catcher. I do want to emphasize, we say power speed threat because he's stolen bases in the minors. He's not very fast at all. He's just done a good job of reading pitchers and being exploitive on the base paths. I don't know if he'll have that same kind of permission in the majors, Augustin Ramirez. I could see the stolen bases totally disappearing, but the bat is legit.
Would you take him over Edgar Caro, the White Sox prospect who got called up last week?
Yeah, easily.
All right. And one other prospect I wanted to mention was Luke Keeschel, who we knew last week was getting called up. We just didn't know, all right, how much is he going to play? What would he look like? Not physically. I think we know what he looks like. We just, didn't know what he would look like on the field.
I actually didn't know I was kind of surprised when I saw him. I was like, wow, look at that hair. I didn't know he had so much.
2 for 4 with a run, RBI, and a steal on Friday. He added another hit on Saturday and Sunday. Luke Keeschel, 22% rostered. He's got 6 home games this week against the White Sox and the Angels, so that feels pretty good. Scott, how aggressive were you on Luke Keeschel? We actually wound up winning him in our NFBC 12-team Roto League that we shared together. We got him for $117 out of a $1,000 fab budget.
Yeah, so that was like a 12% bid there.
Yeah.
And that's about how aggressive I was in the leagues where I needed him most. In the leagues where I was already loaded at middle infield and probably wouldn't find a spot for him, I was being a little more measured, 4%, 5%. I would say, and if you're in a shallower head-to-head points league, $0 bid, $1 if you really need him. Like don't go crazy. So that kind of gives you an idea of how much the bidding can change depending on the league size and the scoring format. Because, obviously those head-to-head leagues, no middle infield spot, you just don't have as much of a need for this kind of player. But I think Keishel's good. If you'll remember on Friday's show, I said I wasn't sure if this was a coronation, if they were calling him up to play him, or if they were calling up just because they needed someone else who could fill in at middle infield while some of their guys were banged up. But started all 3 games over the weekend, batted second in one of them, and got on base in all 3. So I think he is. I think he's created some buzz in Minnesota, has Luke Keeschel. There weren't a lot of hard hit balls over the weekend, even though he got some hits. What was the hardest hit ball? I don't think it was much over 100 miles per hour. 101.5, averaged 88. Small sample, obviously, but we were seeing similar things from him in the minors, like not a lot of raw power here for Luke Keeschel, even though he hit home runs, was good at elevating to his pull side. And, you can make up for low exit velocities with that, but it may cost you in terms of batting average. That being said, great plate discipline, great base stealer. We saw him do with that once over the weekend, I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
And I could see it going really well for Luke Keeschel. So, in leagues like where we made the $17 bid, we've been cycling through second baseman all year because we started out with Tyro Estrada and he got hurt right away. And we were at one point we were forced to start. Who were we forced to start?
We started Max Muncy of the Athletics this week.
Yeah, really. Oh, just like might be better with nobody. So that is definitely the high end of what a Keeschel bid should be if you have that kind of need.
All right, let's run through the rest of the news from the weekend. Scary scene on Sunday Night Baseball as Luis Arraez was carted off the field after a scary collision at first base. The Padres announced that Arraez was in stable condition. He's conscious. He was responsive. He was able to move all of his extremities, and he's actually apparently already been released from the hospital and has rejoined the Padres. So sounds like thankfully we've avoided anything big here, Scott. If you just go ahead and throw Arraez back in the lineup this week.
I'd be reluctant to do that because I gotta figure just for prudence sake they'd give him a day off or 2, right? Yeah,
it makes sense.
And they haven't ruled out an IL stint just because he's back with the team, I don't think. So I would try not to start Arraez.
Tyler Glasnow left Sunday's start due to cramps in his right lower leg, and before leaving, he looked pretty good. 4 shutout innings with 6 strikeouts at the Rangers. Do you start Tyler Glasnow this week?
Yeah, I think so. He's so high end, and they make it sound like a really minor injury. If you want to play it safe, I get it, but I'm probably going to start Glasnow.
All right, Wyatt Langford was activated on Sunday, so make sure to get him back in your lineups this week. Blake Snell threw a bullpen on Saturday. Before I go any further, I'm kind of scatterbrained here, but a reminder that on Monday, it is the Patriots Day game in Boston, and that game starts at 11:10 a.m. Eastern time. So if you're listening to this live, definitely as soon as it ends, go set your lineups because you might not get another opportunity to do so. Or if you're listening to this in the morning, just make sure to set your lineups. And speaking of setting your lineups, we have a new function on the website where we are going to have live comments on the CBS Sports Fantasy articles, and we're going to have a live Q&A in the comments section of a post that's going to be set up from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern time, and Chris will be there to answer all of your questions. So again, at 10 a.m. Eastern from 10 to 11, you can go to the site, cbssports.com/fantasy/baseball. There'll be a post. You go in there, drop your comments, and get them answered by Chris ahead of lineup lock. Let's get back into the news. And Blake Snell threw a bullpen on Saturday, his first since going on the IL with shoulder inflammation. Afterwards, he said he feels way better throwing now than when he attempted to pitch through the injury before. He added that he'll need at least one more bullpen in a simulated game before there's a discussion about being activated. Padres manager Mike Shildt said on Friday that it would be a little aggressive for Jackson Merrill to be ready to return at the start of their next homestand, which begins April 25th. So perhaps we're not seeing Jackson Merrill back until May. At this point, it sounds like they are playing that one safe. Kerry Carpenter left Sunday due to right hamstring soreness, Scott. In the leagues where you use Kerry Carpenter, probably 5 outfielder leagues, do you start or sit this week?
Probably playing safe and sit him if I have a decent alternative.
All right, Josh Lowe took about 20 dry swings on Saturday. He said after that his oblique feels good and added that he is hoping to start hitting off a tee later this week. Grayson Rodriguez will receive a second opinion after getting MRI results back on his right shoulder. And it feels like second opinions don't usually end very well, but I hope I'm wrong on Grayson Rodriguez. Ezekiel Tovar was placed in the IL with a left hip contusion, retroactive to April 16th. AJ Puck was placed in the IL with left elbow inflammation. Obviously, this sucks for AJ Puck, whoever has him, and I would imagine mostly roto and category leagues, but man, this can be a huge arrow up for Justin Martinez.
Yep, he may have just shored up the closer role, even if it ends up being a relatively short absence for Puck. Torey Lovello might just get so comfortable using Martinez in the ninth that it just becomes his role.
Zach Neto was reinstated by the Angels on Friday. He went 2 for 9 with a home run this weekend. He's up to 82% rostered and 40% started. So in leagues with a middle infield spot, I would feel pretty comfortable getting Zach Neto back in the lineup. Zach Eflin threw from 120 feet on Sunday, said he feels good. He's on the IL with a low-grade right lat strain. Ben Rice left Saturday after getting hit by a pitch on his left elbow. X-rays came back negative. He was out of the lineup on Sunday. Scott, what do we do with Ben Rice this week?
I think you're probably okay starting him, but I know the league where I have Ben Rice, I also have Michael Busch, so this is just, for me, an automatic excuse to start Michael Busch instead, even though the Cubs have the worst matchups 5 games next week.
Heston Kjerstad also left Saturday after getting hit by a pitch on his elbow. X-rays came back negative there. David Bednar was recalled by the Pirates on Saturday. He appeared in the 9th inning of that game on Saturday. They were losing 3-0, and he allowed 2 hits, but also struck out 2. David Bednar, 27% rostered. Scott, do you think he's just thrown back in the closer role right away?
He was dominant in the minors, is worth pointing out. So I could see that happening. I don't like that he allowed 2 hits in his very first outing, but we'll give him some leeway here. So he threw 5 scoreless innings in the minors, just 1 base runner allowed with 7 strikeouts. So I think Bednar has earned a chance to get another look for the Pirates. Do I trust him in fantasy? No, but in leagues where saves are scarce, I think he needs to be rostered still.
Lucas Erceg left Friday after taking a 109-mile-per-hour comebacker off of his left foot. X-rays came back negative there. Jack Leiter will make a rehab start at AAA on Tuesday. He's on the IL with a blister. Mark Vientos was out of the lineup Sunday due to groin discomfort. Scott, do you start or sit Vientos this week?
I'd try to sit him.
Jeffrey Springs left his start early on Sunday with hamstring tightness, and he was pretty bad before leaving this start. And outside of his first start of the season, he's been kind of mid. Are you okay dropping Jeffrey Springs in shallower leagues?
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. Shallower leagues, you'll probably get away with it, even if you think he's decent still and better than most starting pitching options out there, given that starting pitching is thin, as I pointed out a couple times. I think you could probably pass him through waivers and take a shot on Logan Henderson or David Festa, or maybe that's an opportunity to pick up Jonathan Aranda. I'd do that.
Brian Bayo will be activated to start Tuesday against the Mariners, and that could make him a 2-star pitcher, right?
Brian Bayo. Yeah, I have him among the 2-star pitchers, though he is in the no thanks category of the 2-star pitcher rankings.
Other names who went to the IL this weekend: Derek Hill with a left wrist sprain, Martin Perez with left elbow inflammation, Brandon Marsh with a right hamstring strain, Blake Trinan with right forearm tightness, Victor Vodnik with right shoulder inflammation, Jason Hayward with left knee inflammation, and Bo Brisky with right ankle inflammation. As you've probably figured out by now, we're going to go a little bit longer, as we usually do on these weekend recaps.
Even without Chris here. My gosh.
It's just
what a windbag I am.
No, this weekend in particular, Scott, it was a crazy weekend for fans.
This was a big waiver wire weekend for sure.
Yeah. And for those wondering, we don't love starting this late on a Sunday. I would love it if we can start at, 8 or 9 on a Sunday, but we're also putting in our waiver wire bids ourselves on like all the teams that we have. So it's just Sundays are crazy, man. There's always a lot going on, and it is why we have wound up starting it so late here on Sundays as well. So let's get into waiver wire pitchers, other names outside of the ones we already mentioned earlier. The first group, more so for shallower league, Scott, Grant Holmes, Jamison Tyone, David Peterson. Actually, I'm going to throw a lot of names your way. Grant Holmes, Tyone, Peterson, Severino, Waka, Verlander. All of those are between 60 and 80% rostered. Are there any names in that group of 6 names that really, really stand out for you?
Stand out as what? They need to be rostered?
Yeah.
Or stand out like I just have something to say about them?
I guess it could be either.
Either. So Grant Holmes, he was really inefficient again. And this is his 3rd start in 4 now with 4 walks. The previous start, he looked like maybe he turned the corner, 67% strikes, but only 55% strikes in this one. And he was teetering on the edge of disaster. I think back-to-back innings, he loaded the bases with less than 2 outs, but managed to just give up the 1 run. Got 7 strikeouts, so he's still doing a decent job of missing bats. 3.22 ERA, 1.21 WHIP. That looks fine. I'm not saying it's time to drop Grant Holmes, particularly where you can take advantage of his relief pitcher eligibility, but I am starting to get a little nervous about these recurring walk issues for him. Looking at the other names here, he's still the one I'd want to roster most. So this isn't the most inspiring group. Justin Verlander finally had a good start. He had been pretty terrible, but gave up just 2 hits against an Angels lineup that's been performing pretty well. The fastball in particular was effective in this start for Justin Verlander. I'm pretty skeptical still, but I don't know if what is he rostered in now? He's rostered 64%. So he got dropped in a lot of leagues. The head-to-head points league where I had him, I had already dropped him. If you're desperate to pick up another pitcher, you could give him another shot, I guess, on the heels of this start. I think it's probably a waste of time, but you never know. You never know, given Justin Verlander's history, if maybe he figured something out there. Tyone, Severino, Michael Waka, they feel like streamer types, low ceiling kind of pitchers. David Peterson, because the ground ball rate is so high, I'm always interested when he gets strikeouts like he did against the Cardinals over the weekend, 9 and 5 1/3 innings. It's like, sometimes that slider gets some whiffs, and maybe if he can get that strikeout rate up, then we're really onto something here for David Peterson. But that's been pretty inconsistent this year. I think he had 1 other good strikeout performance. Let's see, 5 and 6 innings, 3 and 4 2/3, 9 and 6. So he's gotten 9 twice. Yeah, I think he's still pretty low end, but I do think maybe David Peterson's a little more interesting than Tyone, Severino, and Waka.
I think so too. And this goes back to late last season as well, where David Peterson over his final 11 starts had a 2.41 ERA and a 1.14 WHIP. I don't really buy it, but I mean, he's done this for, again, it's like, the past 3 full months that he's pitched, last 2 months of last season and the first month of this season, where it's been pretty good production. So I do think that like Grant Holmes and Peterson are probably at the top of this list. I agree with the other names. I think they're mostly streamers. Severino gets the White Sox this week, so obviously that's a really good matchup if you do want to go with him. Waiver wire pitchers part 2, and I think some of these names are definitely more interesting.
This is who I wanted to do. This first name is who I wanted to do for, oh my goodness gracious. I can't believe we're just now getting to him.
I'm sorry, Scott. You could have brought him up if you want.
I overlooked him.
There's a lot going on. But let's talk about Landon Roop, who had a great start at the Angels, 7 innings, 2 runs, 9 strikeouts. We spoke about Abbott. Liberator had another strong start as well at the Mets, 6 2/3 innings, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts, 13 whiffs on 100 pitches. That slider just doing the heavy lifting right now for Liberator, and then Logan Henderson. So again, more interesting options, could have more staying power than the names we just talked about. But Scott, how would you rank Roop, Abbott, Logan Henderson, and Matthew Liberator?
Yeah, so even though they're less rostered than that previous group, I do think they're more interesting. And Roop is the guy. Roop is, to me, the breakout pitcher of the weekend, even more so than Henderson. I would prioritize him on waivers over Henderson or David Festa or Andrew Abbott, any other pitcher you could pick up. Landon Roop is the guy. He finally brought it all together here in this start against the Angels. 18 whiffs on 96 pitches, got the 9 strikeouts in 7 innings. Just 1 walk in those 7 innings. 12 of the 18 whiffs came on the curveball, which he threw 45% of the time. That curveball, the whiff rate on it rose in this start to 58%. It's his most thrown pitch, and it has a near 60% whiff rate. I don't know that I've ever seen a pitch with a whiff rate that high, much less one thrown almost half the time. It's crazy. This is a otherworldly pitch for Landon Roop, and if he can just throw enough strikes, I think there's a ton of upside here. I mean, he flashed it prior to this start. It's just, like I said, it finally all came together here, and I'm very excited for the potential. I think Roop is must add.
All right, yeah, Landon Roop, 43% rostered. He's home against the Brewers this week, and he is RP eligible for those who play in head-to-head points leagues. Did you rank the group, Scott? I know you mentioned that Landon Roop is at the top, but how would you rank Roop, Abbott, Liberatore, and Logan Henderson?
I ignored what you said. Did you tell me to rank him? Okay, so it's Roop, Henderson, Abbott, Liberatore. Liberatore is worth commenting on here because in his previous start, it was also a good one, but the velocity on all of his pitches was up in that previous start. 1 to 2 miles per hour on everything. It was back to normal in this start. And if he has his normal velocity, I don't know. Nothing looks that different from Liberatore other than the results. So I don't know. I guess he's throwing a changeup more, but we're talking like as part of a deep arsenal, he's throwing it like 11% of the time. I don't know. I don't see a lot here that's changed for Liberatore, and so that makes me skeptical that he's going to be able to sustain this because he was pretty useless in fantasy prior to this year. He is relief pitcher eligible, so I was putting in a very low dollar bid for him in points leagues, just trying to get as many sparps on my roster as I could. But I'm not investing with Liberatore with a lot of confidence where I am investing in him.
All right, this last group, I would imagine mostly deep league streamers here, depending on the matchups, but maybe I'm wrong. Scott, you tell me. Luis L. Ortiz, Tyler Anderson, Jake Irvin, Ben Lively, Chad Patrick, Logan T. Allen, all had good starts this weekend. Do any stand out to you?
I would say the most interesting are Luis Ortiz and Chad Patrick. Chad Patrick finally gave us some length for once. It was the first time we've seen him go 6 innings and only the second time we've seen him go 5 or more. And he got whiffs at a nice rate here. 16 on 94 pitches, 10 came on his cutter, which is kind of his primary pitch. And he had pretty good minor league numbers last year, did Chad Patrick, sort of like Logan Henderson, not a lot of attention, but the minor league production was such that, you kind of wish he got more attention. I think he's just a deep league option for now. I was only putting a bid on him. I got him in a 15-team league, but I'm keeping an eye on you, Chad Patrick. There might be something there. And Luis Ortiz, back-to-back good starts from him. And these are 2 organizations that are great at developing pitching, the Brewers and Guardians. So that's part of the reason why when I see them having good multi-start runs, I start to wonder if there could be something there.
I do just want to mention for Tyler Anderson, he's home against the Pirates this week. So if you are someone looking to stream matchups in a deeper league, I think Tyler Anderson against I would use almost any pitcher against the Pirates right now. Their offense is just so bad. So I would be okay with Tyler Anderson against them in deeper leagues this week. Over to waiver wire hitter, Scott. We spoke about Jonathan Aranda, who blasted a walk-off home run on Saturday. He played against 2 lefties this weekend as well. Kyle Manzardo is a name we have talked about a lot early on in the season. He actually hit a home run into the Allegheny River off of Paul Skeens this weekend. The batting average is low, but the power has looked good. He's now 1 game away from gaining first base eligibility on CBS. Once he joins that mix, Scott, yet another name. Would you rather have Aranda or Kyle Manzardo?
Aranda. Kyle Manzardo, I think, would be at the back of the group, so I'm putting him behind Aranda and Ben Rice and Michael Busch and Spencer Torkelson. Not that I just listed them off in the order I'd rank them, because I'm not sure, but I would put Manzardo at the end. He doesn't have the same high-end exit velocities, but he did homer twice over the weekend after kind of snapping out of a cold spell that brought his batting average below 200 briefly, back over 200 now. One of the home runs was off Paul Skeens, as you said, and the other home run was off a lefty on Sunday. So I think that Skeens home run, was that his first against a righty all year? No, his second. But he's up to 6 now, right? 4 of the 6 have come against lefties for Kyle Manzardo. So at the very least, you'd think the platoon concern is out the window with him.
All right, let's talk about Dylan Moore, who had a huge week. 10 hits, 3 homers, 3 steals, 6 runs, and 5 RBI. He is batting .316 with 5 homers and 5 steals. He has started 6 of the past 7 games for the Mariners. 53% rostered, has second, third, shortstop, and outfield eligibility. Scott, what size leagues and what formats do you think Dylan Moore needs to be rostered in?
Any roto league, probably, because he provides speed and he's eligible at 4 different positions. So he's just a handy fill-in that, only takes up 1 spot on the roster, obviously. The track record's pretty bad apart from steals. He does elevate a lot. So you could see maybe how power could be the result there for Dylan Moore. But it's a big park, and mostly him elevating the ball has just translated to a bunch of fly ball outs, which is why that batting average has been so low for Dylan Moore. But if you can keep the strikeout rate down like he's done in the early going this year, I think that gives him a little more hope of hitting 230, 40, maybe, and could be just a handy utility player for you in that case.
A bunch of hitters in deeper leagues, Scott. Were you looking to add any of these in those 15-team mixed or anything deeper than that? Rowdy Tellez, Mickey Moniak, Trent Grisham, Alex Verdugo, Javier Sanoja, who is an outfielder with the Marlins, and Drake Baldwin, who had a big week here. I just hope it wasn't good enough where he just starts to take playing time away from Sean Murphy, because this could get maybe annoying for fantasy. But
yeah,
do any of those names stand out in deeper leagues, Scott?
Yeah, the Drake Baldwin experience has been a little frustrating and could remain so, because now he's actually performing. The underlying data looked great the whole time when Murphy was out, but Baldwin wasn't getting the hits to fall then. Now he is. So I think he's probably still in discussion as a second catcher, below Carson Kelly, obviously below Augustin Ramirez, but probably ahead of Edgar Caro for me. The outfielders here, I was looking at all 3. Mickey Moniak. Let me list them in the order I was looking at them in. Deep 5 outfielder leagues, 15-teamers, even some 12-teamers, I guess, with 5 outfielders. Alex Verdugo 1.
Homer.
Mickey Moniak 2. Trent Grisham 3. And the reason I order them that way is Alex Verdugo is the Braves' leadoff hitter now, at least for as long as he's delivering. And he got 4 hits, obviously, on Saturday, 2 doubles. He seems to have his personality seemed like one the Braves needed, sort of giving them that swagger that famously is discussed when they acquired Jock Peterson in 2021. Because they just seem to come to life with him there. And the track record is better than it gets credit for. he doesn't have much power. He's never hit more than 13 home runs in a season, but he was consistently at like a dozen with the Red Sox, a dozen homers, a 280 batting average, a 350 OBP. Like the kind that would, if you're batting leadoff in a 5 outfielder league, is not bad to fill that 5th spot. And I've gotten hit with a lot of injuries in some of those 5 outfielder leagues. So I think Verdugo's just a good lineup stabilizer in fantasy, and potentially he could actually be a plus in batting average. I know last year he wasn't with the Yankees. It was a big disappointment, but for most of his career, he has been. So Mickey Moniak, we kind of laughed when the Rockies acquired him. Like, why are you blocking Zach Veen like that? But he looked good for stretches with the Angels last year, and maybe he'll be somebody who magically benefits from playing half the time in Coors Field. We don't see a lot of that anymore, like in the good old days, but it does happen sometimes. And I think at 5 outfielder leagues, the way he's performed so far, good strikeout rate, good walk rate, all of that, Mickey Moniak could be something there. Trent Grisham's, of course, been productive so far, but with the playing times, been pretty sporadic, right? I mean, just in terms of how much he started. And the track record does not favor Trent Grisham. I know a lot of these home runs have been of the wall scraper variety. So I don't really trust him to keep it going, or the Yankees to keep running him out there. But in 15-team 5 outfielder leagues, he's probably worth a pickup just to see.
Yeah, he has started 5 of the past 7 games for the Yankees, so they're trying to find ways to get him in the lineup. It did help that, Ben Rice was banged up with that elbow, so that got him in there too. So far, the plate discipline has really been good for Grisham. He hits a lot of fly balls. He pulls a lot of fly balls. Quality of contact has been great. I don't know if any of these things will remain, but under the hood, everything looks really good for Grisham as well. We'll see if he can keep it up.
Average exit velocity is higher. Max is pretty much in line. And the barrel rate is up. So, I to see if there's a real skills change, I usually look at max exit velocity versus just average exit velocity, because average exit velocity could just be an indication that he's hot. But yes, the average exit velocity is up. It wasn't bad in previous years for what it's worth. It was over 90 miles per hour. A lot of good it did him.
Mm-hmm. All right, Scott, I do want to quickly talk about 2 of the expected top closers in baseball who are just off to these terrible starts. On Saturday for the Yankees, Devin Williams got the 9th inning with a 4-run lead. He gave up 4 runs on a walk and 4 hits. Just incredibly frustrating for him and his fantasy managers. He's got a 9 ERA, a 2.25 whip, swinging strike rate way down, walks way up so far for Devin Williams. And for the Guardians on Sunday, Emmanuel Clase got the 9th with a 3-run lead. He gave up 3 runs on a walk and 4 hits. He took his second blown save. It's a 7.84 ERA, a 2.23 whip. I know reliever stuff can be very fluky and like these small samples. Everything we deal with relievers is they're always small samples. But what are you seeing here? Like what's going on with Devin Williams and Emmanuel Clase?
I mean, not a lot. I don't think that I have a lot valuable to offer here. These were the top 2 closers drafted. They obviously, their track records are unimpeachable. So it's just a matter of like, do you think track record means anything or not? And you should. I think you should. I think that means most of all this early in the season. That is if you're going to do single factor analysis, that is the single factor you should analyze, is how good has this guy been in the past and for how long. And for both of these guys, they're a 10 as far as that goes. So I get that it's frustrating. I actually do have Emmanuel Clase in one league. And it's like one of the rare times over the years that I've actually invested in a high-end closer, and it's been just disastrous so far. Devin Williams' velocity's down a little early in the year over a small sample. I don't read that much into it, and I don't think it would be this transformative, even if it was an issue. Looks like the movement profile on his changeup, which is the world beater pitch anyways, about the same. I know I read for Emmanuel Clase, the Guardians were saying his cutter and slider, his two pitches basically, are kind of running together. So he's working on separating them in terms of velocity. And we actually saw that in this most recent outing. The slider velocity was down. But comparing the separation on those two pitches to past years, it doesn't look that different for me. I don't know that that's really what's going on with Class A. Unless they lose their job, I'm just going to stick with them. I don't think there's anything more you can do. And I'm sure this isn't, I didn't pull up examples of the past, but I can remember times in the past where Class A had a rough patch, and probably Williams too, though that one doesn't come to mind. So it is, I don't think you should freak out about it. I understand the frustration, but I think you just stick with them because it's probably going to, the odds are it's going to turn around.
All right, let's bounce around with some leftovers from the weekend. And we had some really masterful outings on the mound. And two of them came against each other. Yamamoto against Jacob deGrom on Friday. Yamamoto, 7 shutout innings with 10 strikeouts. deGrom, 7 innings, 1 run, 7 strikeouts. He gave up a leadoff home run, and then that was it. But it was a tough luck loss there for Jacob deGrom. Some other names, Zach Wheeler, 7 innings, 2 runs, 13 strikeouts against the Marlins. Logan Webb tied a career high with 12 strikeouts at the Angels. And Mackenzie Gore has had a ridiculous start in Coors Field, 6 innings, 2 runs, 13 strikeouts, which tied his career high, which he set on opening day of this season. He had 28 whiffs on 104 pitches, Scott. So some really masterful starts from Gore, Logan Webb, Zach Wheeler, deGrom, and Yamamoto.
Yeah, I think the Rockies are just as good of a matchup as you'll find, home or away. I understand Coors Field and the difficulties there, but I think for a visiting pitcher coming in, maybe it'll change over the summer, but right now it's not like it messes them up to a degree that repeated starts there messes up Rockies pitchers, and they seem to be faring just fine because that lineup is so bad. And in Gore's case, I mean, he got half the whiffs on the curveball, and you would expect a breaking ball to suffer, especially in that thin air environment. So Gore's looking great. Back to 64% strikes in this start. That's the one stat that's kind of gone back and forth for him. But he looks great. Logan Webb, the changeup seems to be back in form. It was the dominant pitch for him in this start. I was never that concerned about him, but even less concerned now. 11 whiffs just on the changeup for Logan Webb. Let's see, Wheeler. Yeah, I mean, he threw a bunch of splitters in this start, which I always like to see because I think that's an effective pitch for him. Just introduced it last year and kind of faded it over the course of the season. It was his second most thrown pitch in this one. And obviously he got great results. So no worries with Zach Wheeler. He's looking great.
Did just want to mention Tyler Mahle as part of that group as well. Some skepticism. Will he keep this up? Well, he just did it against the Dodgers, too. 7 shutout innings, only 4 strikeouts in this one. Tyler Mahle is up over 80% rostered on CBS, so not really talking about him from a waiver wire perspective, though. If you play on Yahoo, he's only 62% rostered, so please add Tyler Mahle if you play on Yahoo. He's at the Giants this week, Scott. Based on everything that I've seen, I think you have to start Mahle and run with it as long as he's pitching like this.
Yeah, so you said, he's up to 80. All right, he just crossed the threshold. But yeah, I have him as a start for this week for sure. I mean, the most hits he's allowed in a start this year?
I think it was in this one, four hits, wasn't it?
Yeah, 4 hits once, 3 hits once, 2 hits 3 times, and 1 hit once.
Wait, he only allowed 2 hits in this. I wrote down.
No, yeah, there you go.
He only allowed 2 hits in this one. So 3 hits is the most.
3 hits. And that was in what was considered his best start because there was 9 strikeouts in it. His most hits so far.
Oh,
the strikeouts haven't been that great for what it's worth, but the swinging strike rate has been good. And missing a lot with the fastball, especially, which I like to see.
I did have some starter sit questions. Just 3 names I'll throw your way. Sandy Alcantara got crushed by the Phillies this weekend. He is home against the Reds this week. Zach Gallen got crushed by the Cubs. 6 innings, 6 runs there. And he is home against the Braves. And Roki Sasaki turned in his first career quality start, 6 innings, 2 runs, 4 strikeouts, and he's home against the Pirates this week. So, we have not talked favorably about Sasaki. Man, I think you can use him against the Pirates this week. But what do you think about Gallen home against the Braves and Sandy Alcantara, who is home against the Reds?
Sandy Alcantara hasn't looked great. I got to be honest with you. His velocity, it's down about a mile per hour from when we last saw him healthy, and just way too many walks. And I'd rather not have to start him this week. Who did you say was facing? The
home against the Reds.
Reds, yeah. Let's see. I understand it's a good matchup for Roki Sasaki, and I understand he's coming off his best start. He did not miss many bats in this start at all. And as much as we've talked about how 96 miles per hour on his fastball isn't good enough, you'd like to see it more at 98. He averaged 94.7. So it's continuing to trend down for Roki Sasaki. Only 62.8% strikes, even though he walked 3. He walked 3 and didn't throw many strikes. So there's still a lot of issues here for Sasaki. It might work out against the Pirates just because that's such a favorable matchup, but he might walk himself silly. And I don't know. I don't think we're to the point of talking. We're definitely not to the point of talking dropping Sasaki yet. He just had a quality start, but I don't know that he's trending up really in my eyes. Who else did you ask about here? You asked about Alcantara.
Zach Gallen. He's been a disaster.
Yeah, it's been bad the past couple starts.
If I have Tyler Mahle, I'm starting him over Zach Gallen this week.
That's fair enough. I'd come closer to starting Gallen than Alcantara, I think. But I could understand sitting Gallen.
All right. We had a bunch of hitting leftovers, but I really just wanted to mention one in particular because he was a very hot topic 1 week ago today. And it was Dylan Cruz, who, yes, went into Coors Field, a very favorable place to hit, but he had a great weekend. He had 5 hits. He had 2 homers. He had 2 steals. Hopefully he can carry this into games that are not in Coors Field, Scott, but it was nice to see from Dylan Cruz.
Yeah. Both of the home runs were over 102 miles per hour. He had 4 batted balls better than 102.5 miles per hour in that Saturday game. So he was hitting the ball hard.
Both to the opposite field, too.
Yeah, he was hitting it hard, hitting it more often. I think he's coming around. I think you're going to be fine with Dylan Cruz. So be glad that you held.
All right, let's wrap up with to stream or not to stream. On Monday, Scott, we have Clark Schmidt at the Guardians. Oof. Eric Fetty at the Braves. Quinn Priester at the Giants. Do you small slate? It's only 8 games. Do you use any of those on Monday?
If I have to use one, I don't want to. But if I have to, well, probably Clark Schmidt at Cleveland. I was about to say Eric Fetty at Atlanta. I guess he would be number 2. I don't love either, though.
All right, and then on Tuesday, we have Nick Martinez. I know he's been bad, but it's at the Marlins. Mitchell Parker's been good, but he faces the Orioles. Griffin Canning against the Phillies. Zach Littell at the D-backs is tough. Jose Quintana at the Giants. Jordan Hicks against the Brewers. Osvaldo Bido against the Rangers. Blah.
I guess my favorite is Nick Martinez at the Marlins on Tuesday. Those Palante at the Braves could be okay. Bido against the Rangers could be okay. You don't have to stream anybody. Have the confidence in the pitching staff you drafted, honestly.
All right, we're going to wrap there for Scott. I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify, and we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.